Welcome to a very special episode 3 of Warmaster Revolutions, where we'll be trying a new scenario.
Here is the High Elf army being used in today's battle report. We have got a general, a hero on a dragon with a sword of might, and a wizard with a scroll of dispelling. For units, we've got 2 units of spearmen, 2 units of archers, 3 units of silver helms, 1 with the sword of destruction, 1 with the sword of cleaving, 2 units of reavers, 1 unit of chariots, 1 giant eagle, and a bolt thrower. With 12 units in the army, the breakpoint is 6. For the chaos list in today's battle report, it's being led by a general, and it also has a hero and a sorcerer with a scroll of dispelling. It's got 2 units of chaos warriors, 3 units of marauders, 1 with the sword of fate being represented by the plague bearers. We've got 1 unit of ogres. We've got 2 units of chaos knights, 2 units of chaos hounds, 1 unit of harpies, and a chaos spawn. With 12 units in the list, its break is 6.
Here is Past Sage with a brief explanation of the scenario. I'll try and clarify things after for you.
For tonight's game, we're trialling a new scenario. We're going to be placing objective markers. They have to be 30 centimetres apart. And to be able to score any victory points in the game, you have to kill objectives first. Each one you kill nets you 100 victory points and also gets you 500 towards your victory point cap, so you can then score VPs. Normal break, normal kills, normal everything like that. Let's see how it goes.
Alright, Past Sage, he tries his best, doesn't he? Let me clarify the scenario here while we look at deployment. First thing we do is we roll scouting. H wins with a +10 to his scouting, and then we each take it in turns to place 3 objectives on our side of the table. Each objective must be placed 30 centimetres apart from another objective, and we place 1 in the deployment zone, 1 in the next 20 centimetres of the board table, and then the last one must be within 20 centimetres of the middle of the board. Only 1 objective can be placed in terrain. H puts his on the hill and I put mine in the woods. Each objective counts as defended, impassable terrain, and has 6 hits. You can charge them as you would an enemy unit using initiative or an order. However, you can only fight 1 round of combat. Fail to kill it and get pushed back by 1 centimetre. You can also shoot at the objectives if you need to. The amount of points you can score in a game depends on how you go killing the objectives. If you attack the objective, you get plus 100 points towards your victory point cap. If you destroy an objective, you not only score 100 victory points, but you get plus 500 victory points towards your cap. So basically, if you ignore the objectives and break your opponent, you'll get no victory points for it because you haven't killed any objectives to have any amount of cap that you can fill. Just by attacking one of them, you can score up to 100 victory points for the game. This is obviously cumulative. If you kill 2, you can score up to 1,000. If you want more clarity, jump in the comments and let me know. You can see on the left side, I've placed 2 close to my army and 1 on the far right flank behind some impassable terrain, whilst H has put his objectives all around the central hill in his deployment zone. There, H places his scouts behind his hill, and then I place my army down. Top left corner, you can see my... top left of your screen, you can see my knights and co up there, then my big infantry corps in the middle with my flyers behind. H places his army then across, making a big cav buses on each side of his infantry line, guarding his artillery hill, getting ready to be able to defend his token on the top. And then it's Chaos turn 1. My first order for turn 1, I'm going to order the cavalry, which of course I'm going to fail the very first order of my game. They make a nice little 15 centimetre move up with their failed order. Next up, I'm going to start moving some of my infantry, just discussing the ramifications of that one in the cover there. And then I managed to roll a blunder on this bit of infantry here, as I got to move the next part across into the trees, and managed to get a nice -1 command on the marauders at the back for the rest of the game. That's me. Turn 1 for High Elves. Again, just a little bit of movement, a bit of jostling. I think this is a point in time in which H discovered that the markers count as impassable terrain, so I had a little bit of an awkward move around here. Maybe I forgot to tell him at the start. Classic Sedgy stitch up, just trying to give myself every little advantage I can with these scenarios. So he's had to move around the objective there, as opposed to other games where you can move freely over the objectives. So his line just sort of advances nice and slowly. He's getting ready to sort of move up in the future. Then he bumps his flyers over here and watch his placement of his flyers here. So he's just obviously planning things out at the moment. And he very sneakily, initially is thinking he's going to land there, but then in a moment's time, or maybe it's a little bit later in the turn, he's going to move them so that it's basically impossible for me to get a charge off against him unless I do 3 orders by walking all the way around, because I wouldn't be able to physically fit in front of them with where the impassable terrain is. So that's a nice little maneuver he's managed to pull there. There he goes, just a little shuffle there, obviously well within range. The rest of it, he's just sort of jostling up, making sure he's ready to defend his 2 objectives and not give me any opportunities to go any further in this turn. So my turn too. Thing I look to check here is where I need to get for my flyer to make his flyers have to initiative charge my units. And then I'm going to do a hone back with my flyers towards my general, just seeing if I can put some pressure on one of his objectives. My hero to the north is going to split that Chaos Cav Brigade up, and then we fail immediately on the first stand. My wizard then does a lot of the heavy lifting this turn, managing to move that brigade to put the pressure onto his flyers. Then also succeeds here, moving the spawn and another brigade up into the field to then put pressure on his lines. My general is now going to put an order onto my flyers and jump them over the back. I'm aiming for as much disruption here as possible, whilst also keeping my ability to initiative charge the objective up there. Then fails on the unit of infantry, but 10 centimeters is enough to get them into the trees there, which is great. A bit of character movement shenanigans. I move the hero down to the south so he has a bit of extra range. My general stays with the cavalry, and my wizard goes and sits in the middle. Wizard manages to get off Anger of the Gods, burning his Dispel Scroll because he can't really afford to have any more negatives in the game. He then smartly uses a hone back on the start of his turn 2 here to have his flyers jump back to his hero. So really clever maneuver there, leaving my guys hanging out in the wind. And then from there, he's then also having a look around at who's got negatives and who doesn't. Gets his Glade Riders to ordered charge into the front of my guys over there down the south, which is good for him and bad for me. Luckily, he's in the front, so he won't be able to pursue once he does have his first round of combat. Then he gets an order off on his flyers over here, so they manage to jump to the other side of the objective with an initiative charge range there. And at this point in time, there's frankly nothing I can do about that. I kind of just have to let his flyers take that, or do their best to take that objective, and just sort of sit back. Shuffles his infantry back here. He really doesn't want to come into the fields and charge those Chaos Warriors. So we've got a nice little spot there. The spawn's out in front to be able to soak up a lot of the shooting as well. I'm always surprised by how tanky a spawn is when it comes to just eating those shooting attacks from, whatever is shooting at them. As long as I don't ignore armor saves, they can take an absolute beating. Here, his knights and chariots get their 2 orders off to charge my dogs and my knights here. He sends his knights into the dogs, and he sends his chariots into my knights. Probably should have moved that the other way around. We had a bit of a chat after the game about that, and making sure that the squishier targets are against each other, and his knights have the ability to tank some of the attacks back from my Chaos Warriors. A little bit more movement shenanigans from the guys up on the hill. Gets lots of shots off here. But thanks to the spawn's insane armor save, everything sort of stays nice and happy over there, which is good for me. In he goes, doing his little 3d6 fallback over on the flank there, with my flyers getting pushed back a small amount. And then we move on to the combat in the middle of the board, the big one over here. I throw everything I can at the chariots because they have the worst armor save. I'm trying to do as much damage to them as humanly possible. He throws most of his attacks into the Chaos Knights, probably another mistake. Instead of maximizing all of his attacks he could take onto the dogs. So he manages to, I think he wins the combat by 1, pushes up and follows on over here. And then in the second round of combat, I actually managed to win the combat, wiping out the chariots and push his stuff around. First thing I do this turn is obviously I have my newly moved knights go into the flank of his doggies over there after my hone back. Now I get a really great hone back roll here and manage to land exactly 1 centimeter behind the unit of Cav there. Then I charge my Ogres in on initiative as well, because now I know that they are going to get wiped out if I just manage to win the combat by 1. And with a support, I feel like that's not the worst trade-off in the world. I get a few orders off down to the south here with my hero and manage to get this unit over here. And we're not sure what the rule is when the entirety of a unit is split in the flank/front zone. All of the stands were there being split down the middle. Get in the comments and let us know, does that count as front, flank? We just ended up rolling a d6 for it. 1, 2, 3 front, 4, 5, 6 flank, and we did this a couple of times in the game. But yeah, it happens. It was a bit of an odd one for us though. I get my order off here with the knights, moving them up. Second order, I fail though, so they're just going to sit there happy as Larry. And then we move our characters around from here. And again, looking for that disruption as much as possible. Throw an Anger of the Gods out on the field, which is always happy when that comes off. We roll some combats, and we, of course, wipe out his Silver Helms over here on the flank. And then when we attack with the Ogres, we actually lose the combat by 1. He had a few more attacks than me because I couldn't quite get enough stands in contact, and my support didn't quite do enough. So I go back to 1 centimeter, and then he is going to slide sideways on me, cheeky boy that he is. So he's going to then open up his own flank, ready for next turn against the Ogres over here, if he so wishes to use it, of course. There he goes. Nice slide. And turn 3. Alright, high off turn 3. First things we see is the initiative charge down at the bottom there into the objective. This doesn't end up going as well for him as he would have hoped, of course, but that's neither here nor there. You'll find that out soon enough, I'm sure. Then we just have some ordered moves. No and the initiative, obviously, in the middle of the board, where he's managed to hit my Ogres in the flank now with his cavalry. A little bit of shuffling movement shenanigans here, just trying to secure his position on the hill, not come out too aggressively. He jumps his dragon over to join the eagles at the same time, and he repositions his reavers just next to the forest there. So if I get stuck on the objective next turn, he'll have an opportunity to sort of push me back, which is good for him. Then from there, he shoots and casts magic at the flyers here, and you'll see me just in a moment as he rolls just bucket loads of dice between all the archers and the reavers and the spellcaster. You watch me take the budgies off the board there. Boom, boom, boom. Nice little shooting face for him. 6 wounds done and dusted. A little bit more combat here, and he manages to take a standoff, and then when he pushes my unit back, I make way with the spawn, and he manages to get the confused off on the spawn, which is super annoying. Comes back in, leaving me with 1 stand of Ogres remaining, taking me down another half a break. Then he does a nice little power slide back, ready for further charging shenanigans. And we move on here onto Chaos turn 4. Now, the big thing here in Chaos turn 4, this is a lot of my charges coming in, right? So in comes my initiative charges for both sets of knights on the objective. Now, the rule is you only have to have 1 stand-in base contact with it to get all your stands of attacks. So that made it nice and easy to get in there. Then we do some more ordered maneuvers over here. So hoping that I kill this objective is what I'm setting up all of my movement for after the fact. So first things first, I'm going to move the guys out of the trees. This was on a 7 and then a 6 to come around the side and then into the flank. Chaos Warriors first here. I got really lucky getting in there, which was awesome. Then the Marauders come across and they go into the Knights in the front there too. So if I kill this objective, I'm going to be laughing when it comes to the second round of combat, having the next lot of Knights hit them in the flank after the fact. We take down the Wizard joins the guys at the bottom, gets off a Rage of Chaos. We hit and manage to do 7 wounds to the objective, then doing some initiative follow-ups from that combat. So the first lot of Knights go around to the Reavers, which were their closest enemy, and the other round of Knights go into the other Knights to the south where the Marauders were, which is fantastic. We get the Reavers in 2 turns of combat without taking any damage back in return. and then we managed to knock off the knights here too with those knights. So we reform into a nice little battle line, making it a bit scarier for his hill to hit us. Down to the south, we win the combat in the first round thanks to supports, but we don't actually manage to do enough damage here. We fluff some rolls going forward. Now he gets his movement back here, no confusion or anything like that, good for him. The next one is a bigger hit on them, and the Reavers sort of make way backwards, which is very interesting, and we have to sort of decide if we follow up or not there. I think we decide to fall back behind the lines, and thus not wanting to expose the flank of that unit. So we sneak around behind, and that is us made way. High Elf turn 4, and we see some initiative charges here. So first thing he does is he heads into against the spawn with one of his units of spears in a moment. He's then going to let's have a look here. This is again us trying to work out if we're in the front or the flank for some of these charge options here. Now obviously he goes in the front now with the spears there, just nice and straightforward. He then sends his other archers up against the knights there on the front with all of the supports there behind the high elf archers, in the hopes of pushing me back from that perspective as well. Then we get a few orders off here on the Reavers going into the flank of the spawn, and this is where I actually find out just how resilient a chaos spawn can be, which is just spectacular. Then he's working his way around, guarding the top platform up here to make sure it's as hard as possible for me to be able to capture that objective at the top of the hill there. Alright. We're just doing the combat here, I think, now. Just sort of jump through. He's only managed to do 2 wounds to the objective. So first round of combat against that objective with 11 attacks, he only hit 1 time, needing 5s to hit due to it being defended. Second round of combat against the objectives, he needed 11 attacks again, needing 5s to hit, and only got 2 hits that time. So he's actually only done half the wounds to that objective at this point in time with 22 attacks, which is just devastating for H. It does open his cap up to 200, so he can now score 200 victory points, which he has already scored, to be fair, from what he's killed from my army. But it is also quite frustrating that despite having 22 attacks of that thing, that defended status, stopping the attack bonuses and everything like that coming through, and 6 wounds, just found it really hard to sort of chew through that. I got a bit, I rolled exactly average for my knights to be able to charge it on the turn that they went into it, which was very lucky for me. But then we go from here. Now, obviously, we drew the knights against the archers. So they slid sideways, and my spawn managed to tank all of the attacks as well. So that ended there. Now, this is going to be my last turn here. I'm going to break H on this at this point in time in the game in a couple of minutes. You'll see me trying to move around to get to one of those last objectives and failing every opportunity at the last chance to charge in on it. And then at some point in time this turn, you'll notice me break him. So what do you think of this scenario? You can see it was quite hard to kill the objectives. We only managed to kill 1 of the 6 objectives on the table, so that made it really tricky. And that meant my salary cap only opened up to 500, whereas because of H's 2 failed attack rounds, he managed to drop his up to 200. Here's how we're going to try it out next time. These were our ideas, but we'd love to hear from you about your ideas of how we might change this scenario as well.
Jump down in the comments and let me know what you thought of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have been Sedgy, and this has been Warmaster Revolutions. Thank you so much for choosing to spend some of your hobby time with me today.